What if I told you that the blood running through your veins might not be entirely human? Yeah, I know how that sounds. But stick with me here, because this story gets absolutely wild. So there's this theory that's been floating around for over a century now. And honestly, the more you dig into it, the stranger it gets. We're talking about a lost continent called Mu, supposedly the birthplace of all human civilization. And before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another Atlantis knockoff, let me tell you, this one's different. The whole thing started back in the 1800s with this archaeologist named Augustus Le Plongeon. The guy spent years studying Mayan ruins, arguing that the Yucatan civilization was older than ancient Egypt. Pretty controversial stuff for his time. But then he dropped an absolute bombshell. He claimed that the Mayans weren't even the original civilization. They descended from refugees of an even older continent called Mu that had been completely swallowed by the ocean. Now, as you can imagine, people thought he'd lost his mind. Where was this continent? What happened to it? Where's the proof? Le Plongeon didn't have solid answers, so his theory got buried pretty quickly. Everyone moved on, or so they thought. Fast forward about 50 years to 1926. A British writer named James Churchward published 3 books that completely revived the Mu theory. And here's where things get really interesting. Churchward claimed he had actual proof. According to his story, back when he was a young soldier stationed in India, he befriended this high-ranking temple priest. One day, their casual conversation took a serious turn. The priest brought out these ancient stone tablets covered in a language that looked absolutely incomprehensible. Churchward described them as sunburned, made of clay, but appearing like stone on the outside. The language was called Naga-Maya, and supposedly only 2 other people in all of India could read it at the time. So Churchward made a deal with the priest: teach me this dead language, and I'll properly restore and preserve your tablets. The priest agreed, and Churchward spent who knows how long deciphering these mysterious writings. When he finally cracked the code, what he found was absolutely mind-blowing. The tablets didn't just mention Mu, they described it in vivid detail. We're talking about a massive continent in the Pacific Ocean that existed between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago. According to Churchward, Mu stretched from the Marianas to Easter Island going east to west, and from Hawaii to Mangaia going north to south. Bigger than South America, he claimed. But here's what really caught my attention. Churchward said Mu had over 64 million inhabitants divided into 10 tribes, but they all followed a single government and practiced one religion. He described 7 major cities, with colonies spread across other continents. The people were called the Naacal, and Churchward claimed they were a black race that was superior in many respects to our own. The continent itself sounded like paradise. Vast rivers, massive hills, gorgeous plains, a thriving civilization with advanced knowledge and technology. Everything was going great for the Naacal people, until it wasn't. According to Churchward, about 12,000 years ago, Mu was completely obliterated in almost a single night. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, absolute chaos. The entire landmass broke apart and sank into what he called that great abyss of fire, covered by over 50 million square miles of water, 64 million people, an advanced civilization, an entire continent, gone in one catastrophic event. Now I know what you're thinking. One guy's story about some tablets that, conveniently, nobody else ever saw? Come on, that's exactly what skeptics said too. But then something unexpected happened. In 1921, this mineralogist and archaeologist named William Niven was digging around in San Miguel Amantla when he discovered over 100 tablets covered in strange writing. And guess who claimed he could read them? James Churchward. He said the language was similar to the Naga-Maya he'd learned from those Indian tablets. Coincidence? Maybe. But it definitely made people start paying attention again. And the evidence doesn't stop there. Let's talk about Easter Island for a second. You know those giant Moai statues? Those massive stone heads, that weigh up to 82 tons? The Rapa Nui people who built them say they were honoring their ancestors. But here's the thing, Easter Island sits right in the geographical area where Mu was supposed to exist. These statues were built between 1250 and 1500 AD using volcanic tuff from an extinct crater. The craftsmanship is incredible, the precision is unreal. But here's what really gets me. How do they move these things? The statues are located far from where they were carved. The islanders have this tradition that says the Moai walked to their locations. Walked. Just think about that for a second. Modern researchers have theories about rope systems and rolling logs, but honestly, none of them seem entirely convincing. Some people even think spiritual power was involved, which brings us to an even crazier possibility. What if the Mu people weren't entirely human? I know, but hear me out. Let's look at the pyramids. Not just the Egyptian ones, pyramids all over the world. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt aligned with insane mathematical precision the pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico, built thousands of years later, but following similar designs. The Shanxi pyramids in China, older than the Egyptian ones, but using the same geometric blueprint. How do completely isolated civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, all build the same structures using the same principles? The mainstream explanation is independent development, but that seems pretty convenient, doesn't it? This is where the ancient astronaut theory comes in. And before you dismiss it completely, consider this. Cultures all over the world have stories about beings from the sky who came down and taught humanity. The Sumerians talked about the Annunaki, celestial beings who created and guided humanity. The Mayan Popol Vuh describes sky gods who made humans. Hindu Vedas mention Vimanas, flying craft piloted by gods. What if these weren't myths? What if Mu was the first point of contact between humans and extraterrestrial visitors? Some researchers think the Mu civilization might have been a hybrid. Society, part human, part something else. The tablets describe divine rulers with knowledge far beyond what a primitive civilization should have possessed. If there was genetic mixing going on between humans and extraterrestrials thousands of years ago, that would explain the rapid advancement, the incredible technology, the structures we still can't fully understand today. And maybe, just maybe, it would explain why Mu had to be destroyed. What if the hybridization was seen as an abomination? What if the entire continent was deliberately wiped out to eliminate this genetic experiment? Okay, I realize how insane all of this sounds. And trust me, mainstream science is not having it. Geologists point out that continents don't just sink. The Pacific Ocean floor has been extensively mapped, and there's no evidence of a massive loss. Landmass, plate tectonics, makes it basically impossible for a continent the size of Mu to disappear without leaving any geological trace. Then there's the issue of those original tablets Churchward claimed to have seen. He never produced them for other researchers to examine. Nobody else ever verified their existence. Without the tablets, the entire foundation of the Mu theory crumbles. Linguists also challenge the idea that Mu influenced Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. There's no solid linguistic or genetic evidence linking these civilizations to a shared Pacific origin. They argue that these cultures developed their languages and architectural principles independently. So if Mu never existed, why do so many cultures have flood myths and stories of lost homelands swallowed by the sea? Here's an interesting possibility. What if Mu was real, but not the way Churchward described it? Some researchers think Mu might have been Sundaland, a vast area of Southeast Asia that went partially underwater at the end of the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago. Same time frame. Churchward mentioned real catastrophic flooding, real loss of land, real displacement of populations. Or maybe Lou Plongeon just misinterpreted the Mayan texts. What if Mu was a symbolic or mythological place, not an actual continent? What if the legend of Mu is a cultural memory of multiple real catastrophic events? The sinking of Doggerland in Europe, the flooding of Sunderland, volcanic disasters, all blended together and passed down through generations until they became the legend we have today? The honest answer is we don't know. There's no concrete geological evidence for Mu as Churchward described it, but there's also something compelling about the connections between ancient civilizations, the similar structures, the shared myths, the unexplained technological achievements. Are we carrying genes from a possible hybrid civilization? Did an advanced mother civilization exist in the Pacific before recorded history? Was there contact between ancient humans and extraterrestrial visitors? Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. Maybe there's a real place, a real catastrophe, and real people whose story got lost and transformed over thousands of years. Or maybe it's all just a fascinating myth that tells us more about human imagination than human history. Either way, the legend of Mu makes you think. It makes you question what we really know about our origins, about the capabilities of ancient peoples, about the possibility that there's more to human history than what's written in our textbooks. But let me tell you about something else that doesn't quite add up with the skeptics' explanations. Remember those Niven tablets I mentioned earlier? Over 100 of them, discovered independently by a completely different researcher. Churchward claimed they were written in a language similar to what he'd learned in India. Now, either this is the most elaborate hoax in archaeological history involving multiple people across different continents, or there's something we're missing. And let's talk more about those Moai statues because they really are bizarre when you think about it. The tallest one, Haro, stands about 10 meters high and weighs 82 tons. 82 tons of volcanic rock carved with primitive tools transported across the island and erected with precision. The Rapa Nui people at the time didn't have the wheel, didn't have metal tools, didn't have draft animals, just human power and ingenuity. Or was it just human power? The oral tradition saying the statues walked is fascinating because researchers Terry Hunt and Carl Lippo tested a theory about moving them upright using ropes, and it worked. The statues could be walked. But how? Did ancient people figure out such a sophisticated method? Trial and error? Knowledge from an older civilization? Churchward described Mu as having 7 major cities with millions of people and colonies on other continents. Even if Mu wasn't a continent, but was Sunderland or another flooded landmass, that means a massive civilization vanished from history. Where did those people go? If millions were displaced by rising sea levels, at the Ice Age's end, they went somewhere. They brought their knowledge, culture, and building techniques. Is it crazy to think survivors spread across the Pacific, settling places like Easter Island, carrying stories of their lost homeland? Think about the timeline. Churchward said Mu was destroyed 12,000 years ago. The last ice age ended roughly 11,700 years ago. Sea levels rose dramatically. Coastal areas worldwide flooded. Ancient settlements are now underwater off India, Japan, and the Mediterranean. Why is it hard to believe a Pacific civilization was similarly affected? The ocean is vast, barely explored. Ancient texts from around the world talk about beings who came from the sky and taught humans agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes beings with incredible power and knowledge. The Book of Enoch talks about the Watchers who came down to Earth and mated with humans, creating hybrid offspring called the Nephilim. What if these stories are based on real events that got mythologized over time? What if there were people from Mu or elsewhere who possessed advanced knowledge? 2. Other populations that would have seemed godlike. Modern DNA analysis shows humans interbred with Neanderthals and Denisovans. We carry their genes. We know humans mixed with other species. Is it far-fetched to Wonder if there might be other genetic influences we haven't identified? The universe is vast. The idea that Earth is the only planet with intelligent life seems arrogant. If other beings exist, is it impossible they visited Earth in our distant past? What gets me most about the Mu theory isn't whether the continent existed exactly as Churchward described it. It's the bigger question it raises about human history. We like to think we have history figured out, that we know where we came from and how civilizations developed. But the truth is, there are massive gaps in our knowledge. We're constantly discovering new archaeological sites that push back the dates of human civilization. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built around 11,000 years ago, wasn't supposed to exist according to our previous understanding of human development. Every few years, some new discovery challenges what we thought we knew. Ancient tools turn out to be older than we thought. Structures we believed were natural formations turn out to be man-made. Underground chambers and tunnels reveal sophisticated engineering from cultures we considered primitive. Maybe Mu, in some form, was real. Maybe it wasn't a continent, but a culture, an advanced maritime civilization that spread across the Pacific Islands and influenced the development of other societies. Maybe the stone tablets Churchward claimed to have seen were real, and they're hidden away somewhere, waiting to be rediscovered. Or maybe it's all fantasy, a compelling story that captured people's imaginations because it offered answers to questions we couldn't otherwise explain. The thing is, we may never know for sure. The Pacific Ocean keeps its secrets well. If Mu did exist and sink beneath the waves, finding evidence would require extensive underwater archaeological exploration in one of the deepest, most challenging ocean environments on the planet. It's not impossible, but it's not something that's going to happen overnight. What I know is this: the story of Mu represents something important. It represents humanity's desire to understand our origins, to find meaning in ancient mysteries, to believe that maybe we're part of something bigger than we realize. So what do you think? Could there be truth to the Mu civilization? Are we carrying genes from an ancient